let's go like this. Hello. Ah. Okay, did I do it? Am I live? I am, I think. Okay, cool. Good afternoon. Hope you enjoyed that slightly different intro. I've been finding interesting things. Oh, great. Good. Thanks, Rachel. So I've been finding random things on YouTube that I enjoy, and so I found that recently, and I thought I'd share it. Apparently, it's a computer graphics demo from 1981, which is amazingly old. I mean, that's a while ago. So it's great that it looks really cool. The music is kind of something, but oh, good. I'm trying to do these different transition things in here, so thanks, Alex. So glad to hear that looked okay. Yeah, I think the history of computer graphics is really interesting, obviously. So I'm kind of interested in going back to it, but also, like, I don't know about you, but YouTube, like, I listen to a lot of music on YouTube, so YouTube will recommend these like synth waves, cyberpunk, chill hop, like 24-hour streams things, and a lot of those will have video like that as the visual, and then it'll just be on a loop, and then it'll be playing whatever mixes. And so I've been kind of trying to hunt down some of those originals, and that's why YouTube recommended that one to me. So yeah, it worked out pretty well. I like that a lot. I found a few more, so I'm going to keep going. I'll keep sharing those. I'm trying to switch things up on that the waiting room kind of thing I have set up here for Twitch, which I think it's it's a nice way to kind of gradually get started with these streams as opposed to just jumping right in and being like, hi, here I am. But anyway, hi, here I am. Today it's a rainy afternoon and not super hot, but muggy. You know how it is in August, and here we are waiting to see how things go this week. I don't know if you heard, but supposedly president's going to make a decision, or somebody's going to make a decision about face-to-face sometime this week, maybe tomorrow, whether we're making the decision about whether we go back face-to-face. Obviously, that's a big decision, and I'm not paid enough to really have an opinion on that, right? I mean, I can have an opinion on it, but I'm glad I'm not the one who has to make that decision, because that's a really hard decision to make. So I don't know. If you hopefully you got a chance to look at the notebook. I did want to start off today taking you through the notebook, even though I gave you a preview of it the other day. Now that it's complete and you have a copy of it, I wanted to show you a few more things about it. And one of those things is the schedule, which the only part of it that's kind of to be determined is that the last day of class before we theoretically come back face to face. And by then, I'm sure we will know for sure whether we're coming back face to face or not. And we may have thoughts about that or feelings about that. So I thought we would it would be useful to have an extra day of class built into the schedule for us to discuss that, and for me to plan slightly differently based on that. For example, like if we're going to be going back face to face, then kind of my plan A works pretty well for this class. But if not, then plan B is okay too, and we just have to work, or I just have to kind of build the next notebook differently based on that plan B if that's what we're going to do. One of the differences is that starting with the next notebook, so this is now at least 3 weeks away from now, I'm going to be asking you all to take turns leading some of the discussions or instruction in these notebooks. And so that'll be very different if it's face-to-face versus online. So how I do that online or how you do it online will be very different. So that's the main thing that you may have been wondering about if you saw it in the syllabus, but it just depends a lot on whether some of us are face-to-face or not. And so give me some time to figure that out after we know, hopefully tomorrow. So the notebook is here. Let me go through it, and then the main topic, as you see for today, is basically working on and responding to some of the ideas by Nick Montfort and Douglas Rushkoff. So I'm going to take a look at those. I'm the only one talking here, so I will be showing you some things, inviting you to think about things, but also asking you some questions. So I may pose a question as I'm talking, and you can answer. Probably the Discord channel would be better than the Twitch stream, just because these might be kind of discussion prompting questions, and I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about these. This would normally be a very discussion-oriented day of class, but I wanted to do the stream to show you some things in the notebook and maybe get some feedback from you or get some of your ideas, you're thinking about these things as well. So, okay, let me take you through the notebook, and then we'll go into some of the stuff. So here it is, and I just remembered I need to link to the homepage, but I've started building this index page in Canvas of all of the notebooks, which there are 2 so far, and I will, every time I complete another one, I'm going to add it here. In fact, let me go ahead and share, let me add the link to the home page so it's easy to find that. Canvas does not let you do much to manipulate the navigation system, or really kind of make the site your own, and I get kind of why they want it to be consistent, but it does mean that even though I kind of have a different idea, I can't really do my idea, even though I feel like I know what I'm doing as far as building a website with navigation. So anyway, so that's that one. And can I do this straight from here? If I can do this without going into the code, that would be great. Yes. All right, there we go. Okay, so now when you click on the sewing machine, it should take you to the Collab notebooks. By the way, I didn't mention these before, but I just thought, you know, if I'm going to make my own kind of landing page with navigation, I should have some kind of iconographic presentation of that. So all the links here are text links. You can just click on them, but each of the images sort of relates to the thing that it's about. Like there's the phone for contact, there's the TV for Twitch, the computer for Discord. I don't know. Notebooks are kind of about making things, so I thought the sewing machine sort of was the closest for that. For schedule, I was thinking about, you know, time for the clock there, and for the syllabus, syllabus is kind of the roadmap to the class, so I thought a compass sort of made sense. I got these images, by the way, from the Noun project, and I thought I'd show you that because I got these here, and I'm using these with these are Creative Commons licensed by someone named Lycus or Leakhouse. I'm not sure how they would pronounce that, but it's these images here, and they have made these available for free if you give them credit. So if you want to get this icon, like I have used it and I've gotten this one, you can click on get this icon. You can pay money to get it without royalties and remove the watermark, or you can click on the basic download, get a and it adds the watermark, but then you can trim that off, which is what I did. So you can get these as these are SVG graphics. So they should look pretty crisp on different sizes, and hopefully they work. I was able to, to get that hover over effect, I was able to hijack a CSS class for something else in Canvas. Like Canvas doesn't let you write your own CSS, your own cascading style sheets, but if there is already a property value set that relates to what you want to do, you just have to figure out whatever the class is for that. So I was able to find one that I've snuck in here, and it worked. So it's a minor flex, but it's, I was happy that I got a little thing to work there. Okay, so so from now on, if you need to find a Collab notebook, of course there are only 2, but if you need to find one, they should be linked in various places, like on assignment pages or announcements or Discord, but they should always be here too. So you should be able to click on Collab notebooks, and then you've got a list, right? So there was the one where I just introduced the whole concept the other day, and then there's this one, which is I gave you a preview of the other day, but now I'm going to be able to take you through in some detail, and hopefully you already have a copy of it. So as you're viewing it, a couple of things, right? So it's pretty long already. It's going to get much longer as you add to it. So the navigation is important. The table of contents is important. I tried to use emoji to call out different kinds of content. Hopefully that doesn't clutter it up too much. I mean, I recognize that having tons of call outs just makes it even kind of worse, but it can. But I feel pretty good about the way it looks. Like I feel like I can navigate it pretty well. That said, I wrote it, so of course I know what's in there. So but even I get sort of lost navigating it, but I think the emoji helps. So I hope that's helpful for you too. Once you have your own copy, by the way, you can do whatever you want to reorganize it if it helps you. But the first thing you should do is go to File and save a copy in Drive. So do that if you haven't already. Again, this link is in the announcement I sent, I guess, Saturday. It's also on that Collab Notebooks index page. So I'm going to go ahead and do this now because I don't think I have yet. And like we did with the intro, I recommend just go ahead and rename yours. Instead of copy of node 1, blah, 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 name it, Zach's copy of node 1, blah, 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 or whatever your name is. And that way it'll be easier for you to see which is which, and for me to understand which is which when I start seeing them coming in. So please do that. And you should also, once you get a copy, go ahead and check the sharing settings on it. So click on those people up there at the top right. And what you'll get is this set of options to share it. Now it's already shared. I mean, I am myself here, so of course it's shared with me. Okay, hope everybody's okay over there. Sounds like somebody trying to shake open the door. But if you look here, you should be able to change it so anyone with a link can access it, and that's probably the easiest way to do it. So click there, click change to anyone with link. Just set it on viewer, or really commenter if you think of it, because commenter will let me just go in and leave comments on yours. If I just get view access, I can make a copy of it and I can comment on that. But just, anyone with a link and commenter is kind of the best way to do it. And then hit done, then that way you don't have to think about it. Of course, you could also share it with me directly if you feel like it, but just anyone with a link can access and can comment. If you go ahead and do that, that'll save us a step later on, where if you submit it and I can't access it, I'll have to email you and ask you to share it with that. And so, just save us all some time by by doing that kind of second after you make a copy of it yourself. Okay, so by the way, while I'm thinking about logistics of these things, let me show you what you need to do eventually to turn this in. I mean, you could, I guess, turn it in now, but probably not done yet. So let me see if I can switch to student view so you can see what this looks like. I hope this will let me pretend to be one of you all. Let's see. So for this one, will it let me? No, wait, what? I thought I was in student view. Hang on. Come on. Come on. Student view. Okay, there we go. So now let me try to. Things jump around a lot on this view. So let me see if I can turn this in now. Okay, good. So let me submit assignment. Yes, okay. So I will remind you about this again when it gets closer, but I'm just going to tell you now, and hopefully you'll remember. Whenever you're ready to submit this, please use the website URL option. So that's the second tab there. And you could do the file upload one if you first download a PYNB file, but it's kind of a hassle, so I wouldn't recommend that. But what you need to do is share it with me this way. Like go to share, copy the URL, copy the link to make sure you're getting the right one, and then submit that here, website URL, right? You might be tempted to do the Google Drive submission because you think, oh, this is Google Drive, I can just submit it through here. That makes sense. But I mean, that's a reasonable thing to think, but it actually doesn't work. And it's confusing because Canvas doesn't know that it doesn't work. So Canvas will be like, you're done. But what I will see is a blank iframe with nothing in it. And so that means I can't actually see your notebook. So I will have to follow up and get you to submit the right one. I wish I could disable this option, but I can't. So website URL, that's the one to submit with. I will remind you about this again when this is due next week. So just going ahead and doing that very quickly now. Okay, so hope everyone's doing all right. I haven't seen any, actually I don't have Discord on, so let me open Discord again. Haven't seen any questions coming through, so, oh I did, well, where are you? I thought I did for a minute, but I don't see anything now. So, where, am I in the right? Oh, I'm in the wrong. I was afraid of that. I was in the wrong Discord. Sorry. I have two Discords, and they look kind of similar, and in fact, many of you are in both of them. So as I glance at one, it's kind of tricky to make sure I'm in the right one. So let me see, was there anything coming through here? Okay, there you are. There you all are. Okay, so if you have any questions, I am now looking at the correct live stream chat channel in Discord. So feel free to throw any questions up there as they occur to you. All right, great. So let's look at some content. Node 1 is here. I'll just look at my copy so I don't accidentally mess up the original or make any changes to it that would be confusing to someone else. All right, so I like to collapse all of these pages, each day of this. What you'll see here is basically I've got an interactive schedule and workbook that's teaching you some programming stuff and intertwining that with some concepts related to digital culture. Like, that's the idea. And how well, I hope it works well. I like how it ended up. So today we're going to be talking a bit about like what algorithms actually are, but we're continuing a little bit of the discussion that I started on Friday about why programming. Like, why would anyone want to program? And we got some ideas about that. I'll come back to that in a moment. But as you can see here, during class time today, we've got the schedule is a point in time. Your section is a point in time. You are scheduled to watch now live or watch it on YouTube later. Whichever you're doing is fine. By the way, I don't know if you can see this little emoji guy, but I was pleased that in Firefox, at least on this computer, there is an emoji that it's like male teacher in front of a chalkboard. And I thought that's pretty close to me. So I went ahead and did that. And it is pretty close, but he has a mustache. So I guess I need to grow a mustache so I match the emoji. I've tried to grow a mustache, by the way. It just doesn't work for me. I mean, mustaches are cool, I guess, for people that can pull it off. But I can't do that. I mean, it just doesn't work right. I don't know why. I did. I for many years had a beard, but even then I didn't keep the mustache part. I just let it grow out like Amish style. All right. So sorry, this is random. You don't care. Okay. So but after class today, we might even talk about this a little bit during class today. I thought Kathy O'Neill had a really good explanation of what an algorithm is and the ways in which different people's ideas for what it's for can really have an impact on what it actually does. So it's kind of complicated the way I said it, but she says it in a really straightforward way that I found really compelling. So I've got a couple of different things for you to look at and think about from Kathy O'Neill. She has a book called, where is it? It's around here somewhere, called Weapons of Math Destruction, and it's really good. Oh, it's over there. I can't reach it. But it's really good. It's good at explaining how different, what she calls weapons of math destruction, WMDs, predictive algorithms are what she's talking about. She's talking about how different examples of those have really, a lot of the things that we think of as going badly now are because of those. She identifies several different areas of life and culture that have been made worse by predictive algorithms, overrun predictive algorithms. She doesn't talk about it in either of those sections, so I don't think anyway, but maybe the on the media piece. But she talks, one of the most striking ones that I was interested in because of my interest is in the Princeton Review, the college rankings, not the Princeton one, the U.S. News and World Report college ranking system, which I'm sure you're aware of and that you probably consulted when you were choosing UMW. And she talks about how that is it's a ranking, it's a mathematical ranking, supposedly, but how it actually works and what it actually does has been really harmful, especially to schools, I would argue, like UMW. So we end up kind of in this weird middle ground in some ways, where we're trying to compete with schools that have huge endowments, but we're also trying to keep our costs affordable to be a responsible public institution. And so she blames the massive spike in college tuition costs over the last 20, 30 years. She blames that in part on the college ranking system. I agree. I think there's other things. I think the other big one is the declining public support, like actual money from the state, for example, or federal government certainly. But like for a state school, UMW is a state school. We don't get as much money from the state as you would think, and that's part of the reason we have to raise tuition sometimes. So there's more to it than what she talks about. But I had never really thought about how that ranking system really plays into it, or even really how that ranking system is determined, like who decides these things. It's fascinating. Anyway, she has a good way of explaining the practicality, like ins and outs of what algorithms do, and especially how they can be harmful when they are predictive algorithms that are not transparent. That's one of the big things that she notices as being a key determiner of something being a model being a weapon, as she talks about it. So really interesting stuff. Okay, so there are other parts of today. So you notice we're still in Monday. These headings sometimes get a little bit lost. We're still in Monday here. And I've got a section here called Code Practice. And so this is where I'm giving you some instruction in Python. And if you recall what I talked about with these Colab notebooks, it is running Python in the back end. And my invitation here is to kind of work through this. But notice that for each of these, I sort of explain something, and then I give you some code, explain something, give you some code. You have to read what I'm writing here, because sometimes I'm explaining something, and then the code I've given you is incomplete. So you have to kind of understand what I'm saying and try to apply it to correct whatever is in the code or replace it. Sometimes I say, okay, now that that worked, go back, change it to something else, and see what happens. Like right here, I'm saying change the value of greeting so that it prints a different message. So you got to make sure you read. I haven't written much. Like, this is not a super dense textbook, I hope. But I do want you to read it, because it's like, if you just sort of skim through and hit each code cell and run it, you're not going to be successful. Like, you won't have followed directions, but also I don't think you'll understand it as well. So make sure you read my instructions, and hopefully they help explain things. If you get stuck with it, that's something we can talk about in class. So do your best with it on your own, and then we can talk about it next time I stream or next time we're online together, whatever. So take a look at those. And also, like, when I grade yours, when I eventually look at yours, I will know which things I ask you to change. So if I come down here and I see that this is still the same, then I'll know you didn't really read the directions, or at least didn't follow the directions, which is in itself not a huge deal, but then I will understand how that might help me explain what you missed if you didn't understand something later on. Like, I've kind of built these things up sequentially, so they should scaffold. So if you are kind of confused at a later point, and we go back to this earlier point and you didn't quite follow it there, that's where we should start working, is that earlier point and not that later point. So I don't know, I hope that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, so looking through these things, every time you see this little hand waving icon, the emoji, that's a call out that says there's something you need to do. And so sometimes that's add something to the notebook. Sometimes, a couple cases, that's instructions to go into Discord and do something. So make sure you look for those. Kind of skimming down here, you can see that all the code practices are called out that way, but other things are as well. So let me hide that code practice. So here, and this is still today. I would like for you to write a couple of notes in the notes section for today about how you did with code practice, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So there's how you did with the code practice and how you approach the error message that last code cell is going to give you. So this is kind of a reflection. It's kind of your chance to take notes and record what worked if something worked, or to kind of talk about what didn't go well, and that's fine too. But this is a place to do that. And again, look for those hand waving icons. That's what's going to give you, that's the clue to jump in and do something, right? So I think so today's agenda, as it's explained here, is a good model, and it's pretty much the template. But let me just go through quickly and see if there's anything else that I need to explain. Yeah, inserting images is kind of awkward, so I did do that image here. That's an image taken from this short story. Okay, so that's Wednesdays, and let's see the code practice. The code practice, by the way, it does move kind of quickly, I feel like, but I'm not sure what else to do. And I think not quickly, but I feel like it covers a lot of ground, and I think hopefully that's good. Okay. Oh yeah, I definitely want to talk about this. So for Friday, that's this coming Friday, I want us to talk about this episode of Black Mirror, which is on Netflix. It's an episode called Hang the DJ. It's from season 4, I think. I don't know. I can't link directly to it because it's in Netflix, but I can try to figure this out. My plan is not to stream that day, but rather to have a discussion in Discord, and I might do sort of topical discussion groups around that episode. I don't have a solution yet if you don't have Netflix. So I had thought about perhaps streaming it through Discord, and that may work. Although from what I heard the other day, it wasn't great. Like the video quality wasn't amazing. So that may or may not work. But also Netflix. I know many people do probably have a Netflix account or have access to one. If not, you can sign up for a free trial. If you've already done it once and you have used up your free trial, I can show you how to get a second free trial. There are ways you can do these things, and that may be what I recommend, but I'm still working on a solution that will be free and easy for everyone to watch at the same time, ideally. So let me figure that out. I'm going to continue thinking and working on that. If you want to go ahead and watch it, and if you already have Netflix, you want to go and watch it, that's fine too. I watched it the other night. It's good. I will say I chose this particular episode because it's topical, like it's relevant to what we're talking about this week. But it is also somewhat less bleak and less. I don't know. There's a tone to a Black Mirror episode that can be very stressful and can be beautiful aesthetically, but just makes you feel awful. And I kind of like that, but I think there's enough things going on right now that make us feel bad. So I think a slightly uplifting episode is okay, and that's what I feel this is. I don't know if you've seen they did a ad for. I guess they're coming up. It would be season 6 or 7, and their ad is actually just a mirror, like the joke being that the world right now is a Black Mirror episode. So therefore they don't have to make any new episodes right now. So makes sense. All right, so there's still a lot of other things going on with code practice, moving through all this stuff, but. Yeah, so then the Wednesday, September 9th is the day that this is due, and there is a bit of empty room in this scheduled day so that we can maybe respond to or figure out plan B for this class or whatever we need to do based on whatever we hear about whether we're going to go face-to-face or not. Okay, cool. So any questions about all that? If there are any, then just put them in the Discord chat. I see many of you online in either place, so that's great. Good to see you all. I don't know if you realize this. I guess I didn't, but if I share the Twitch stream in Discord, you can actually just play it in the Discord window. If that's easier for you for some reason, then that's fine. I have it on 2 screens, so I have two different computers here, so I can manage those things multiply. Okay, so let's take a minute and talk about, or I will talk or pose some questions, I guess, about programming. And I think that Douglas Rushkoff's approach is nice because of how, I guess, concise it is and how brief it is. And Nick Montfort reflects on that in his appendix. Like, he talks a bit about Rushkoff, among other different things. Rushkoff also makes a really bold claim that I think should give us pause. Like, we should ask ourselves, and I will ask you, do you think that the boldness of his claim is warranted? Like, do you think he's earned that? Like, do you think it actually makes sense? So you've seen his book where he does lay this out in much more detail, but the 5-minute talk that he gives really does hit the key thesis pretty well. So I think even if you just watch that, you have a pretty good handle on what he's talking about here. So I wrote a bunch of notes to kind of break this down. It's pretty interesting. So there seems to be a couple of key, I guess, analogies in what he's talking about, and I think that's a possible entry point. I didn't write down the timestamps, though. And in fact, I don't know if I can play video through here. I don't know if I can pipe the audio through here, so maybe that won't work. Let me just try it, and then if not, I can just summarize what he's talking about at different points. Let's turn these on. Oh, good. We do have closed captions, so I just can't jump through those unless... Yeah, I don't know, have you seen this before on YouTube videos? If they have a good transcription like this, you can actually scroll through the transcription and jump to the point that you're interested in. So let's see if this works. There's a particular point he makes about biases. Oh yeah, okay. I feel like you probably can't hear that. Okay, but that's a good question. So let me get back over to him. Pause. Okay, good. So yeah, that didn't totally work, but yeah, that's fine. You saw him waving his arms around while he was saying the things, and you hopefully read the caption, and I can summarize it for you. Basically, he was saying or asking how when we think about media having bias, and in that sense, he doesn't mean media like, Fox News has a conservative bias, MSNBC has a liberal bias. He doesn't mean bias like ideological bias. He means like a tendency towards certain kinds of behavior, towards certain kinds of use. Think of it more like medial affordances, if that's an even more technical way of saying it. But what he's saying is how much of it is the medium and how much is it the people that programmed the medium to work a certain way for certain ends. That's his big question. So it's an interesting and it's an important distinction because we're talking about predictive algorithms that have bias in them. So there's an important question that we have to be able to think about and ultimately answer, which is that bias actually coded in the medium? Like, is it because of the medium, or is it because the person who programmed it had a bias that they put there or that they were unconscious of that influenced the decisions they made while they programmed that medium or put that medium together? So what do you think? The bias that he talks about here that he mentions is the fact that digital technology is a plus or minus, 1 or 0. Like at its bottom, that's what it is. It's ones and zeros, it's pluses and minuses. So what do you think? Do you think that tendency towards that plus and minus system, or that tendency that this is like the black and whiteness of that bottom level? Yeah, basically, do you think that has any meaning at these higher levels that we experience anything? Just maybe as one speculation, we talk a lot about polarization and political differences online and how difficult it is to talk across those boundaries, and the tendency to see people as being either you're like me or you're different, and so we're going to argue about it if we're different. Do you think that is because digital technology fundamentally is about ones and zeros and this or that and back and forth? I don't know. What do you think? I mean, that's a very long-winded question. I don't know if you can pick up on any threads of that, but I'm curious. What is your response to that? The premise that digital technology is inherently biased because it's ones and zeros. So type your response in Discord if you think of anything. I do see some people typing. Yeah, go ahead if you can think of anything. Put that in here. Sure. I mean, it's a big question. So it's a philosophical question ultimately. So I don't know if Discord gives you enough space to do that, but if you can think of anything, certainly. So I see a couple of people typing, so I'll let you type your thoughts while I think of the next question to pose. I'm not sure how to get the sound through Firefox. Like from Firefox through OBS. It looks like it should work. Like OBS just has a general like sound dump area called desktop audio, which I think that's where the Firefox audio is going, but it shows up as silent. Like it doesn't have, like it's not muted, it's just silent. So I don't know what's happening there. You know what, maybe it would be a good idea. What if I did this? Okay, so I see response. Great. Let me, you know what, I'll just do this quick and dirty way. So rephrasing it slightly here, but just to put it on the screen. So the question is, does the fact that computers are fundamentally a binary biased system, does that make a difference? And I'm curious to see what you think. So where are you? Okay, yeah. Okay, so we have a couple responses. See how coding practices may create bias. Any logical operator a machine uses to make a choice will choose one thing over another. How the choice is made to choose one thing or another may ultimately lead to biased decision making. I.e. this has a self-driving AI choosing between hitting it. Yeah, right. Yeah, and we'll do that, by the way. We have that, maybe we did it in 101, but there's that website where you can do the trolley problem with a self-driving car, and it's interesting. Yeah, it certainly can be more dynamic and more flex, and I think you know, the more when we talk about complexity in computers, we could also be talking about nuance, the kind of things that we as humans would be able to appreciate. That's how we as humans would be able to appreciate different things with different contexts. Maybe computers can start getting there. I don't know. Yeah. Right. So Sally's talking about news media, like the structure of the television medium, right? And how that does tend to make news more of an entertainment kind of thing or show as opposed to just information. And certainly that's the case. They want to keep people watching. They don't necessarily need us to be getting good information. As long as we're still watching, we still serve their model of putting our eyeballs in front of advertising. And that's that's sad, but it's true. YouTube has the same problem now, actually, because they also emphasize watch time. So long form content will naturally kind of be more valuable to YouTube if it's compelling and people watch it for that amount of time. So it's really interesting how this works. So then I guess the question, like, TV is an analog medium, right? I mean, the original, it's digital now technically, but the original broadcast TV where you tune it in with the antennas, like, that's an analog system. And so I think that's sort of the lines of the questioning that Rushkoff is raising here. Like, does it actually make a difference if it's digital? It is if we accept his analogy, but it's interesting that he's using analogical thinking to create this digital this metaphor around digital thinking. So that's where it gets a little slippery, right? So I see some more typing. Yeah. I guess just a couple more thoughts on Rushkoff. Let me type it up, actually, instead of trying to come up with it off the top of my head. Okay, so the title is, or it's really a commandment, right? So currently, who are the programmers? All right, so this is kind of just a making sure we get what he's saying question. Who are the programmers? If he's saying make sure you are one of them, who are they, right? Who are is it us? Is it me? Is it you? And remember, he's being analogical or metaphorical here. So he doesn't literally mean people who have mastered Python. So that's kind of a hint. Yeah. Right. Computers will never have ideas of ethics and morality, I would argue, Alex. I think it's just like the way that we think of morality has to do with intersubjectivity, like the idea that we have being and identity, and we assume other people that we interact with also do. Computers are so far away from that like, yeah, my idea of ethics has to do with a belief that other people exist. So computers don't currently know that they exist, if that makes sense. Like, there's no sense of internal subjectivity that computers have. They can fake it. We can program them to pretend to have subjectivity pretty easily, actually, it turns out. But whether they actually do is not true. Where they can't, they don't, right? It's sort of the soul question. Like, you feel like you have to have a soul in order to be a moral person, and I don't think computers have souls yet. Maybe they will someday, but I think we're talking about hundreds of years, not tens of years. Like, this is something that's not anywhere near the horizon right now. based on my understanding of current computing capabilities. So, right. So, Katya has a good point. So, corporations, right? And I think I think Rushkoff makes that a pretty clear near the end, where he talks about blogging, right? He says we get the internet, we get programming. What we don't get programmers, we get bloggers. And blogging can be great, obviously, but as he puts it, we're writing in the box that Google gives us. So if we're publishing on like Blogger or Blogspot, we're publishing in the box that Google allows us to have until they decide to turn off the switch, and then that no longer exists. So there are very real consequences to not being the one who programmed it in that case. Yeah, good. So yeah, but corporations and of course, one of the continual frustrations is that there are increasingly fewer corporations controlling increasingly more. So I don't know how you all feel about TikTok. I don't have TikTok personally, but it looks like, at least the latest I've heard, that Microsoft might be buying TikTok, which is interesting. I mean, in terms of the tech giants, right? There's pretty much, Google and Microsoft and Apple, right? I mean, but Microsoft really has not done much in the social space, and so it would be interesting to see if maybe this is their way to do that. Right. I mean, literally, right. I mean, it does sound edgy, as you say, Katya, but it's literally true. Like, it's literally the case that Facebook experiments on us without our consent by changing their design to see what happens, and then it has different outcomes. They get in trouble for this, but they keep doing it. So, I mean, we are literally being influenced by them. And, that was the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal a couple years ago, and who knows what's happening now, right? Yeah, sure. It does. Now, if you really want to get into how algorithms influence what we see and access and then think as a result, one of the readings coming up deals with that a little bit in terms of YouTube. So it's an article. Let me see. I'll go ahead and show it to you. I'm trying to remember where I have this because I was interested in it. Oh yeah, so it's like after class on, well, it really is the topic mainly of class on Wednesday, which is the YouTube recommendation algorithm. And there's this article here from the New York Times, and if you are someone who likes to listen to podcasts, which I have recently discovered I kind of am, sort of to my surprise, this article, who wrote this? Kevin something? I think it's Kevin something. Anyway, he has also published or has also produced a podcast around this same research and around Caleb, the main, I guess, character in this article. And so if you're interested in that, it's called Rabbit Hole. It's like an 8-part series. It's pretty good. I would say it's kind of oddly edited, but I like it. It's just a little different than other podcasts. But it goes into real depth with YouTube and kind of how it got to be the way it is. They interview the current, I guess she's the CEO, the person who runs YouTube. And pretty interesting, and talks about how changes in the algorithm led to certain events on YouTube. I guess my take on the podcast version is it seems really focused on Caleb, and I think the risk of that is that we start to think of Caleb as being this like exceptional case. But I think the real point of it and the real power of this whole research that they've done in this New York Times article is to say that Caleb is very typical. Like there's lots of people like Caleb, and I think that there's a risk that you end up listening to the podcast, especially, and thinking, well, what's wrong with Caleb? Like, why did he do this? I'm certainly not like Caleb. I would not be affected like he was. But I think that's the wrong takeaway. I think the real takeaway is like we are all Caleb. We just don't know it. Caleb was able to kind of snap out of it. The rest of us don't really know what we're in to snap out of. And so I think that's what's really troublesome about that whole thing with YouTube. Yeah. Okay. So let me see. There was I should probably write this up in a table form, but there is an interesting, I guess, structure to Rushkoff's piece, and this is actually how he builds the whole rest of his book. And he kind of gives us this idea that whenever a technology comes around, there are those who can use the technology, and then everyone else in civilization kind of lags behind that. And he talks about the ability that we get as a culture, as a society, is kind of one step behind the elite, whoever have figured out that technology. So he talks about how whenever we create text, that like whenever the alphabet exists. He doesn't talk much about who creates the alphabet or where it comes from, but he says when the alphabet exists as that's a technology, and that has with it the ability that reading is really the technology there. But we don't get a society of readers, we get a society of listeners. So we have the priests who can read, and then the people who can listen to the priest reading, and they believe that they follow whatever the priest says. So the priests there have undue influence and power. Then when we get the printing press, we don't get like everybody writing. We get a few people writing, and then everyone else reading. So now we have a civilization of readers. And he even says that ability to read, widespread literacy, is what led to the Protestant Reformation. He's not alone in making that claim. Like, that's not Rushkoff coming out of nowhere with that. But that's an interesting and very compelling claim, especially if we follow the next step that Rushkoff gives us, which is now that programming is a thing. Some people can program. The rest of us are writing. We're blogging in the boxes that Google gives us. So what's at stake here? I mean, is it something as kind of earth-shifting as the Protestant Reformation? I mean, maybe so. And that's kind of it's kind of a strange thing to think about. Another way of thinking about this whole thing, let me see. I really like the quote, so I want to make sure I get it right. No, I'm not gonna have time because I don't want to waste your time. But there's a quote I really like from Ted Nelson. So Ted Nelson is a kind of an unusual guy, but he is one of several people who invented hypertext or came up with the idea of hypertext. And he is... Oh, did he die? No, he hasn't died yet. Google was trying to tell me, or DuckDuckGo was telling me that, yeah, he's not dead. It was trying to autocomplete obituary, and I was like, I think I would have heard if he had died. But yeah, he's a fascinating person, but he has this quote about fish. Yeah, there it is. Actually came up on this random, inspirational quote thing. Any fool can use a computer, many do. Great, okay. Yeah, okay, so he does say this, we live in media as fish live in water. So this was from if I remember correctly, 1972, when he wrote that particular essay that has this quote in it. And it's the rest of the sentence is, we live in media as fish and live in water. And he says, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he says, we must invent the molecules of our new medium. Like, he's saying, basically, we can't just be fish swimming around. We have to invent water now, because we can. And the whole thrust of that particular essay is you can and must understand computers now. And he's talking about the early 70s. That's when it was super urgent to him that people understood what was going on. And look how far we've come since then, right? And I feel like we still don't. I still think there's a long way to go in terms of understanding computers. So yeah, fascinating guy, Ted Nelson. But let me see. There was a couple more points that came up in Discord. Yeah, it is, right, Alex? That's the way that the algorithms follow you around. Right. Yeah, and I think the social software, I mean, that's where the analogy, I think, gets a little slippery, because he talks about this idea of culture being programmed, and I mean, that's, there is a way to think about it. That may also kind of give, I think, undue credit to certain influencers, but I think that's where it's interesting. Yeah, and so, Crystal, the question then is, what do we do about that, right? If everything is filtered by the time we get a chance to think about it, if someone else has already decided, if something else has already limited the things in front of us to choose from, how do we know when that's happening, and how do we know what other choices are out there? And that's the big challenge. That's the big question. So let's see, right? So I guess we're wrapping up. Let me wrap it up here so you all can move on to whatever else you need to do. Let me say a couple other things about this, because I think this discussion in Discord, I think, segues very well to what we're going to be looking at on Wednesday. So for today, after today, please check this stuff out by Kathy O'Neill to give you some good practical explanations of what algorithms are, predictive algorithms in particular. Work your way through the code practice stuff here, and then write some notes on that. And then before class on Wednesday, I'd like for you to read this short story. So we, in this class, I do like to include some fiction. This is a weird short story. It does kind of read like a Black Mirror episode. And so one of the questions I'd like for you to answer before class is, what do you think happens at the end of this story? So read it and write your theory in your notebook so that when I ask you in class on Wednesday, what do you think happened, you'll have something to answer with. You can just copy and paste from your notebook or whatever. But it's pretty, it's unusual. But it has to do with the recommendation algorithm on YouTube and kind of how we think of ourselves in relation to it. And then there's just some more code practice. This is just kind of a discussion starter you might want to do. Like we've talked about the YouTube recommendation algorithm. Just has YouTube ever recommended something for you that seems totally inappropriate, like totally out of left field in terms of the kind of thing you're normally interested in? And yeah, if so, tell us about it. As long as it's not disturbing or whatever, as long as it's something that's appropriate to talk about in class. Okay, well, thanks for watching, everyone. I think that discussion went okay with me posing your question and then you answering on the stream. I think that it would be, of course, better to have you all talking too, and so we could actually be on the same page in terms, at the same level in terms of the conversation. Either me typing and you also typing, or all of us talking. There's definitely kind of a power differential there, so it's that was more of a lecture than a discussion, obviously. But we'll keep playing with different ways of thinking about things. Definitely use your notebook to record your thoughts about our discussion, or about Rushkoff, about anything else that comes up today. Okay, so I'm going to wrap things up. I went a little bit long, so let me shut it down and get ready for the next section. If you are in section 1, you are done for the day. But just look at the notebook for instructions on what to do, and if you have any questions, of course, please let me know. Okay, have a good afternoon.